So when we talk about compatibility, I want to start by clarifying what I actually mean by that. Compatibility to me means being in a relationship that you want to stay in. We've talked about this on this channel before. It's a relationship where life feels better together than it would if you were single, where the relationship feels like a good investment, something that adds value to your life over time. Now, that doesn't mean that relationship is always going to be easy. Every good relationship has stress, tension, and moments that are hard to resolve. But at the end of the day, compatibility means that the overall direction of the relationship is fulfilling enough that both people want to keep building together. And for that to happen, intimacy has to be maintained. And while intimacy includes sex, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about emotional intimacy. The ability to see and understand one another, to feel attuned to each other's emotional state. Early in a relationship, that often feels easy. You haven't yet touched the deeper struggles, fears, or old wounds, but that's where the real test begins. The couples who last are the ones who can co-regulate, who can come down together from heightened emotional states, find mutual understanding after a disconnect, and repair what was damaged. And when that doesn't happen, people withdraw. They may stay together physically, but intimacy slowly dies. And when intimacy dies, I don't consider that a compatible relationship anymore. If compatibility is the desire to stay together and grow together, then intimacy is at the core of it. Now, there are countless reasons conflict happens in relationships, but through years of studying personality patterns and watching these dynamics play out over and over, I've become convinced that many of the deepest and most painful conflicts are actually rooted in something genetic. Childhood trauma, attachment style, birth order, and mindset all matter, but before we get to any of that, we have to talk about the foundation. And that's the cognitive languages that we speak. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. Language, human language, is the lowest common denominator that humans use to communicate. Language evolved to help societies function, not to guarantee emotional intimacy. Two people can use the same words but feel completely unseen by each other. And this is why couples often go in circles during hard conversations. They think they're communicating, but their nervous systems are regulating in totally different ways. And what feels stabilizing or grounding to one person is often the exact thing that triggers the other. So neither person can settle unless they give up on being understood and retreat inward. And that's where intimacy erodes. And eventually both people decide they'd rather be single than stay in a relationship where they don't feel emotionally met. That's why I chose resonance as the name of this channel. Good relationships take more than communication skills or therapy tools. They require a genetic foundation, a level of compatibility that allows two nervous systems to resonate well enough to maintain harmony, reciprocity, and peace most of the time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Research often references something like a 5-to-1 ratio. For every negative interaction in a relationship, there need to be multiple positive ones to keep things healthy. You can look this up, John Gottman's 5-to-1 ratio. But if two people regulate in completely different and opposite ways, sustaining that balance becomes impossible. So this series is about how people regulate themselves differently, especially under stress, and how understanding those differences can help you make sense of recurring conflicts. From there, you get to decide, can this be worked with and repaired over time? Or would a different partner simply be a better long-term fit? I'm not here to tell you what your nervous system should tolerate. I'm here to give you clarity so you can understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. Earlier I said we really learn how sustainable a relationship is when conflict arises. So I want to start this series with the concept about how people fight. After observing and typing thousands of individuals, a clear pattern shows up. Roughly half of people regulate under pressure by standing firm on logic, reasons, and thinking, while the other half regulate by standing firm on values and feelings. This isn't about what you prefer when things are calm. This is about what won't move when your nervous system is under pressure. When partners regulate by standing firm on different things, repair can become very difficult. Many people who regulate by standing firm on values and feelings report feeling deeply hurt or invalidated by partners who regulate by standing firm on logic and thinking. And many people who regulate by standing firm on logic and thinking experience fear, overwhelm, or shutdown when their partner presses hard on feelings and values. Neither approach is wrong. The problem is each nervous system is doing what it believes will keep it safe. And those strategies often clash instead of calm one another. So how do you tell which one your partner is? You don't need theory. You don't need personality tests. All you need to do is watch what happens when things get tense. So in conflict, do they start pressing on facts, logic, reasons, or truth? Or do they start pressing on values, feelings, and emotional impact? That's your answer. People fight with the thing they trust to stabilize them. Here's another cross-check on this, is that the feminine emotional users will resonate more with sadness than anger. Their feelings are going to be feminine and movable relative to the masculine feelers. Now, everyone does everything. I'm not saying that masculine feelers don't get sad or feminine feelers don't get angry. You're going to have to see how someone responds under pressure. Someone who fights with logic is going to have sharp logic and soft emotions, while someone who fights with values and emotions is going to have sharp emotions and soft, gentle, movable logic. Remember, these are polarities on the spectrum of human behavior when humans are under pressure, not how humans necessarily behave in a calm, regulated state. So if this is a new concept, it can help to see the concept reflected in public figures. So here's some examples of people who tend to stand firm on values and feelings under pressure, often pushing emotional intensity. Adam Sandler, Conor McGregor, Simon Cowell, Kathy Bates, Dave Powers of Objective Personality, Dan Bilzerian, Ashton Kutcher, Chris D'Elia, and Wes Watson. And these individuals' feelings and values tend to be more forceful, while logic and reason stay softer and more flexible. Examples of people who tend to stand firm on logic and thinking under pressure include Mark Wahlberg, Shannon Powers of Objective Personality, Teal Swan, Keanu Reeves, Taylor Swift, Demi Moore, Danica Patrick, Jordan Peterson, and Andrew Huberman. These individuals tend to push clarity, structure, and truth more consistently, even when emotions are involved. And if you watch interviews or long-form conversations with these people, you start to feel the energetic difference. The ones that feel naturally regulating to you likely share your style. The ones that feel more abrasive or overwhelming are often your opposite. Now, again, to throw the antidotes out, this doesn't mean that you won't like people in both groups. You probably will. But if you were to use some intuition and imagine yourself in a long, emotionally difficult conversation with each, you can usually feel which one would be easier long-term to be in a connection with. So to bring this home, the masculine style of regulation, what a person stands firm on under pressure, is one of the strongest predictors of conflict in relationships. If you fight with different weapons, you'll keep hitting each other where you're most sensitive. And over time, that leads to emotional shutdown, distance, and the slow erosion of intimacy. I believe this represents a form of massive genetic incompatibility. Look, biology didn't wire us for emotional harmony, it wired us for expansion. Both styles are valuable, both are necessary for society, but if you're looking for a relationship that feels calm, steady, and emotionally safe, I strongly recommend finding a partner who shares this core regulatory trait with you. And before we end, I want to set up the next video in this series. There's a widespread myth that men are logical and women are emotional. And there are some truths to this. But what we're talking about here dismantles the bulk of that idea. Men and women are evenly distributed across both emotional styles. Some men stand firm on feelings, some women stand firm on logic, and framing relationship conflict as rational men versus emotional women is not only inaccurate, it's deeply unhelpful in couples counseling. That myth often invalidates women's reasoning, dismisses men's emotional experience, and prevents couples from seeing what's actually happening at the nervous system level. So in the next episode, we're going to break that myth down, talk about why this isn't about gender, it's about nervous system regulation. See you guys soon.